Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here. I want to take a moment to share with you the details about the SA Matters live virtual training. This new training platform is gaining popularity quickly, and for good reason. This is by far the most affordable and convenient way for your members to get trained on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. I will work with your training staff to set up a live via the internet training for your members on the date and time of your regular department training. So, for example, you train on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m., well, that's when we'll do the live virtual training. Or if you train on Thursday mornings from 8 to 10, that's when we'll do the live virtual training. You get the idea. I come to you virtually and train your members on situational awareness. If you want to learn more about this training opportunity, just visit samatters.com website, scroll down the home page to the area listed in orange that says Virtual Training Programs. Honestly, it can't get any easier or affordable. Oh, and I didn't mention, you get access to a free playback for 60 days for any of your members who may miss the live training as well. Okay, that's enough of the pre-show stuff. Roll that podcast intro. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Assistant Chief Greg Yost from the Hancock Fire Department, and you're listening to SA Matters radio show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid the bad outcomes.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 192 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple, to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. Did you know I've been sharing this message on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making at live program events for 12 years now, and have trained just over 62,000 students, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, aviation workers, and more. Really, this message is for anyone who works in a high-risk environment. If you or someone you know could benefit from training on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, ask them to reach out to me by visiting the SA Matters website and clicking on the Contact Us tab. If you're new to the podcast, you got some homework to do by going back and listening to previous episodes. There are over 190 episodes featuring some amazing content, especially those from near-miss survivors who have just shared incredible stories. I'm dedicated to improving your safety and your survival and to helping you accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home to the ones who love you. And speaking of sharing the message, today I'm coming to you from Buckley, Washington, where I'm facilitating a leadership development program for their company officers. Training situational awareness and high-risk decision-making can be a game changer. And I know that because attendees tell me all the time what a difference the message has made and how they look at their emergency scenes. Understanding how to develop and maintain situational awareness can truly be a lifesaver. There's no simpler way to say it. One of the questions I get asked a lot by readers and listeners is, when are you going to be in my area, or where are you going to be next? And I've made that really easy to find out. Just go to the SA Matters website and click on that blue box on the right side of the homepage that says Upcoming Events Schedule. Here's something else you might want to know. If you're interested in hosting a program when I'm already in the area, you can do a companion program. Those are programs on adjoining dates to other programs. So if you see I'm delivering a program within a couple hours of where you are, just reach out and tell me you'd like to be a companion to that program, and you can save as much as 20% off the program fee. In today's feature segment, I interviewed DuPont Fire Chief Larry Creekmore. On December 18, 2007, an Amtrak train bound for Portland from Seattle derailed on a busy overpass on Interstate 5 in DuPont, Washington. This interview with Chief Creekmore is his first-hand perspective of the incident. He discusses the complexity of the incident that resulted in 3 fatalities and nearly 100 victims transported to area hospitals. I was able to do this interview live while I was in town doing the Buckley program, which just happened to coincidentally be at the same time of the train derailment. So let's join our feature segment with DuPont Fire Chief Larry Creekmore talking about the Amtrak train derailment. I'm Rich Gasaway. I'm the host of the show, and today I have with me as my guest Larry Creekmore, the Fire Chief of DuPont Fire Department. And I'm actually in Lakewood, Washington. Right now I was in town to do a class, and just a few days ago there was a very significant train derailment incident in DuPont. And Larry agreed to sit down and chat with me about some of the initial response, initial considerations, maybe even, I don't know where the discussion's going to go, maybe some discussion on situational awareness, tie-ins to the things that they had to deal with initially. I'm just not sure. We're just going to have a discussion. Larry, thanks for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So let me just, I got some notes here. Let me sum up the incident. It happened on Monday, December 18th. The Amtrak 501 was bound from Seattle to Portland. And right about the point of over Interstate 5 in DuPont, there was a derailment, which resulted in 3 fatalities and roughly 100 patients transported. And Larry was the 3rd unit on the scene and then established a joint command between the 3 primary agencies of DuPont, Joint Base Lewis McChord, and Lacey Fire Department. And just kind of take it from there. And let's start with like how the call came in, what the initial information was, what you might have been thinking on the way. I don't think you can overshare the details for the people who weren't there, who might want to live this through the perspective of an early arriver to something that most of us are just never going to experience in the course of our career.
Right. Well, I got to work at 7 in the morning. I was sitting around the table with the crew that was going to start their next 24. The dispatch came out at 7:37 in the morning, and the acting captain said what it was: passenger train derailment with fire at I-5, and I just looked at him and said, "You're joking." And then the house tones went off, and they gave that size up as well. And this was the first route for that train that day. It was a brand new track. So we got dispatched, like I said, passenger train derailment with fire. I was automatically thinking, knowing that traffic was going to be standstill, that units coming from the north, that wasn't going to be possible. So our units had to come from Thurston County, and information was given that Joint Base Lewis McChord Fire was already dispatched. They have 6 stations, and their dispatch just dispatched their entire department to the response. Responding, things are going through my head as number of patients. If there was a fire, where were we going to get fire resources? Not having hydrants in the area, thinking about water tenders, foam units. And the time of the morning was a benefit, I thought, because of a shift change in many departments. So we were able to have added staff at that point. When I got to the highway, it was a standstill, so I kind of changed my response route, took the off-ramp, then the on-ramp to get back to I-5, which helped reduce my response time. I got on the scene, and I looked at the overpass. There was one train dangling over the highway, supported by a semi-truck trailer with a number of cars behind it in various states of derailment. And I saw a few cars on the ground. I didn't necessarily see a lot of walking wounded or people, other than probably civilians trying to go up and provide aid.
Did you see any fire at that point?
I just saw light smoke, and it was just probably residual steam from the initial accident.
Okay.
And I got a little bit closer, took a bigger glance at it through my eyes, and I was thinking, how many passengers are on this rail? The inaugural run, I'm sure that there was people that wanted to be on that and be the first.
At that moment, did you know that was the inaugural run of that train, or did that information come to you later?
I knew it was the first day, and I, frankly, didn't even track what time of the morning it was. It that kind of left me what time of the day it was.
Yeah.
Later, it came that yes, it was the first run.
Right.
So I touched base with Joint Base Lewis McCord, Assistant Chief Chris Bernard, who was Incident Commander for Joint Base. We talked a little bit. Looked at the incident, and I was already looking at different hazards that were associated with that incident. The power lines, how the rail cars were in position and were they stable enough to even support people rescuing those cars. Seeing different cars on the ground and that had victims in them. Knowing that the rail cars would carry diesel and the batteries, that's thing that we had to consider. And the number of units that were coming to us, I didn't know what that was at the time because we had 3 different frequencies because we're involving a military fire department that's staffed by civilians, Thurston County, which is on its own frequency, and our frequency. So it was good that once Lacey Fire got there that we all got in one vehicle and did a joint command so we could hear everything that was happening. I initially requested additional units from Pierce County. I got a medic unit and the MCI trailer from West Pierce Fire that has the capacity for treating several patients. The incident happened right at a construction roundabout, so we were able to utilize that area for staging of ambulances and a good turnaround to get people transported to various hospitals. At that point, we were discussing getting the cars numbered, the rail cars numbered, and the ground cars lettered so we can come up with a good search plan to take care of making sure we got everything cleared and searched. But that happened a little bit later in the incident. But just seeing the number of people that started walking towards us once we got in that truck and did command, kind of get overwhelmed pretty quick. Start thinking, there's a lot of people here. The conductor or someone from the rail came up to us, rolled down the window, had a talk with him, asked him what his position was, and he said, I'm the conductor. And I asked him how many passengers there was. He goes, 77. And then we heard the word, okay, we got 77 patients. And I'm like, no, there's cars on the ground. I don't know how many. There's got to at least be a half a dozen. So we have patients there. We have the workers. And thinking about the number of ambulances we had and using our MCI protocol that allows us a little more latitude with transport and transporting multiple patients in a vehicle.
Before you got into the command vehicle, did you do any kind of a walking size up around the incident? And if so, what were you seeing? Were you seeing people in the rail cars? Were you hearing people, screaming or crying, or what was, as far as sensory inputs, what was coming to you before you got into a command vehicle?
I did the walk around about 15 minutes after I was in the command vehicle. I got out.
Okay.
And when I got out, it was really pretty quiet. You could hear fire crews talking about what they were going to do, asking for equipment. But when I went to the south side of things, I had to go underneath the rail car overpass, and I'm looking at that end of it, a total different picture. We kind of had what looked kind of like a clean derailment, but when you got to the other side, there were rail cars on the roadway. Some were on their tops. There were semi-trucks involved with it. There was a section where there was, it looked like 2 rail cars and a semi-truck creating a triangle, and in that middle of that triangle was a car, and I could hear someone yelling for help in there. And he was one of the last victims that was extricated and transported. It was a pretty significant extrication time there. But the rail car was upright, that end, but heavily damaged. I took a peek in there, didn't see anyone in there, but getting that perspective of seeing what was on the south side, they had a lot of things to overcome. Terrain, they had trees that were knocked down, they had some hills to walk through. There was probably maybe 4 or 5 inches of dirt in places on the highway, which kind of was a good thing at first. You'd think it was going to help contain some of the hazmat, but I was thinking that on that end, where's the runoff if we start having leaks, and if there's a fire, where are the escape routes for crews?
Yeah.
Were they even thinking that? Were they just focused on the victims?
Yeah.
So they established a north and south division. So they separated it at the overpass. So they were coordinating rescue efforts and transport efforts.
And at some point, was there a safety officer or multiple safety officers established because of the potential instability of the rail cars? As far as somebody like, big picture to watch out for the crews and make sure that while they were focused on perhaps, extrication and treatment, they didn't get themselves physically into a space that maybe they shouldn't be? Or?
Yeah, I think really what was happening with the safety portion is each company officer was more embedded in their crew as a safety officer, and the division chiefs took care of safety in their division. At some point in the incident, I don't remember when it was, but the county sent an overhead management team and had a designated safety officer from their standpoint. And this was just about at the time when our last patients were transported. And his first comment was, the apparatus are too close. And you look at it and you're like, yeah, they are too close. So he established a safe zone, and it really was probably about an engine length further back from the incident. Looking at the rail car that was hanging over the overpass, I think the thing that gave us the best benefit on stabilization was a semi-truck that was keeping it in place.
Mm-hmm.
So it just was part of the incident, but it was a benefit to us.
Yeah.
And we had falling concrete because the rail car busted through a section of where the concrete was, so we had some concrete coming down in bigger chunks and also smaller rubble. So you're hearing things falling, and you want to take a peek and make sure the rail car wasn't dangling or falling any further.
Yeah. Now, of the roughly 100 patients, do you have any estimation, I'm not holding you to firm numbers, but any estimation of how many of those victims, let's just go with maybe the 77 that were on the rail cars, how many of those people were able to self-extricate out of the rail cars and perhaps were wounded but not entrapped?
I think we're so focused at the command post, talking amongst the three of us, that I didn't really notice people walking to where the treatment and transport area was. I saw people being backboarded and taken to that area, and at one point the conductor came up to us, and I rolled down the window a little bit, and he said there's 18 people at the top of the hill bleeding, and there wasn't any crews up there yet because we had to use ladders to access that, cut through some barbed wire. So we got crews up there pretty quick. I know this morning I heard there's a couple dozen people still in the hospital. Most everyone's been released. But just the taxing of the resources. Then you start thinking about the crew and how they're going to cope with this after the incident. Yeah. I know in my case, just listening to crews talk about having to pass someone that's been triaged that was crying for help to go triage someone else. They go, how do you deal with that? And I go, well, there's 99 other people that we need to determine their level of injury and make the appropriate decisions.
And were they using a tagging system in the triage?
Yeah. I know that ended up happening in the treatment area. I don't know if it was necessarily happening right off the bat. In the lessons learned, I know that we need to go out with those triage bags right off the back and start riveting people so we can take a quick look and know what their injuries are and what level of care they're going to need in treatment. Yeah.
So do you have any sense of how many entrapments there were? And I'll define entrapment as somebody was in something like that vehicle you said that was kind of in that triangle, but in some vehicle, whether a rail car or personal vehicle, in such a way that they couldn't get themselves out, that required some fire department form of rescue and extrication. About how many?
Well, I know of three. The one in the car that happened later once they were able to get the other people that were easily removable. I know another one that happened up on the probably the North Division, and there was one that happened in the car that was dangling. There was a father and a baby in the bathroom, and they were able to get up there, and they had to use hand tools to get that. And I didn't even see the rescue happen. I just know that we were told that they got him out of the rail car, and then you see a father and a little baby standing there uninjured. So that was good to see that.
Yeah. Maybe because they were in the bathroom, it might have.
I think so.
You know,
Yeah.
that kind of maybe protected them.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that, as you have reflected back on it, that you could say maybe were surprising? You know, something, or several somethings that might have happened that you would have said prior to that, I wouldn't have thought about this happening, but this happened, or I wouldn't have thought about this event occurring, and then it occurred, and then we had to resiliently kind of deal with that, and kind of caught us off guard, or because I gotta think that even though we train for things like this, when it really happens, there's probably just some things that just don't that we're just not expecting that occur.
Yeah, I was thinking back to, when I was with South Kitsap Fire a number of years ago. We did an MCI drill at an airport, and we had 100 patients, and the retired medical officer called me the other day and goes, "You remember that drill? We transported 100 patients with, we simulated a bus crash, and we did that in about 2 hours." And he did say, "in a sterile environment." And I go, I do remember that. I think you kind of take those events and put them in that big Rolodex file in your brain, and you can recall things that you need to do and improve upon. I wasn't expecting this on the first day of the rail. We expected there might be an incident somewhere along the route where a tractor trailer might have been half through the intersection and had their trailer portion hit. Mm-hmm. But this one, you don't expect that. You train for it. You prepare for it. I think you go to work every day thinking that something big is going to happen. Otherwise, you're going to react rather than respond.
Uh-huh. Was there anything that you look back now and you say, "Man, I wasn't thinking that this would have been one of the factors, but it ended up being something that we had to deal with." And that could be from the incident, it could be from interagency cooperation to radio communications challenges, anything. It's not just the actual.
Yeah. The radio's definitely communication issues with 3 different agencies with 3 different frequencies, and the law enforcement, the number of Pierce County State Patrol, city police officers, military police officers, both civilian and military. All with their own set of interests for the incident, and it'd be nice to grab one of those folks and say, "You're the representative for law enforcement, and we need to tighten that joint command even greater."
Did that happen?
Not until they moved to the command post, and initially I know they wanted us to move to a command post that was, at a golf course a little bit further down the roadway, and it's like a good suggestion, but we'll do that after we mitigate this first operational period for us.
Yeah, kind of had to be able to have some eyeballs on things to help you gain perspective.
Correct.
So how far into the incident did the command post move? It's just time-wise. Was it a couple hours in? Or?
It seemed like a couple hours. I know as things are winding down with transports, I took a look at my watch, and it was either 9:15 or 9:30. So within 2 hours of arriving, patients were transported and heading to hospitals, which I thought that was pretty quick to do that. And we just happened to be in a good area where there's lots of resources. We had multiple private ambulance companies that were available to us, multiple fire agencies, and hospitals close by. I mean, the furthest transport my department had to do was into Puyallup, which is, they said, was a 22-minute priority transport. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the biggest shock to me, that happened that quick. And I just think it goes back to how we train as agencies, how we train together. I mean, just a week prior to this, our department drilled quite extensively with Joint Base Fire in a acquired structure, and just to get face-to-face with those people so we know names and we know each other's capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, helpful.
Very helpful.
As you look at the pictures, there's some of the rail cars seem to be dangling precariously. Was there any concern about any of those cars shifting or falling? And were there any victims on any of those dangling cars? And if so, what kind of rescue complications did that create?
I think the rescue complications on the ones dangling was getting access to them. If that semi-truck wasn't supporting the one rail car, that would have been, I think that rail car would have ended up on I-5 as well as the one behind it. I think on the North Division, the difficulty of gaining access was those vehicles were, those rail cars were on their sides. So getting in there and dealing with going through people that were on top of one another, injured, getting them out, it seemed to really go smooth, that people were pretty easily extricated. They just had to get access to those rail cars and take them out, unconventional means.
So it was there any victims that were, caught up in twisted wreckage, or was it just a matter of creating a pathway for them to be removed and, through a door or window or something like that? Were there complications to the rescues, or was it just a matter of creating access and then backboarding or whatever and bringing them out a window or something like that?
Getting feedback from the divisions, I didn't hear of a lot of complicated extrications other than the ones that were later in the incident, but I think it really was just access, getting to the rail cars, going through fencing, going down terrain, having to cut trees and brush out of the way to get a good clean pathway, and that I think was the biggest challenge, more so in that North Division back in the wooded area where the rail cars were in the brush and trees.
Now you mentioned the North Division a couple times, so how did you all parse this incident? House, you got A, B, C, D, and Division 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you're in open space, the normal method of identifying areas of an incident don't quite fit so conveniently. So, what was say the north, and then what was the boundaries of that, and then if there was a north, I'll assume there was a south.
Yeah.
And how did you come up with these geographic areas, and then how did you get them communicated to the responders so they knew they were working in the north or the south, or how did that get managed out?
It was really based off where the rail overpass was.
Okay.
Everything on the DuPont side was north.
Okay.
We call that North Division. That was mainly Joint Base Lewis McChord responders, so they had their frequency, so they communicated. That means they also had DuPont work with them, and they did face-to-face communications. And the other division was opposite side of that rail car. That was Thurston County. They had their own frequency. They had Thurston County resources.
Did you call that south?
South. Yeah.
Okay. And then was there east or west? Or
no, east or west, just that north-south. So this incident, once the trains derailed, and it was really a tight space. So that they had good eyes, good company officers. Managing their crews and taking care of the rescues.
With so many response agencies, and by your statement, which has been my experience as well, that the various agencies that come in all have their priorities, which are not necessarily compatible with other priorities. How did you bring control of all these agencies? Who was there? Where were they? Was there any challenges in accountability of the incident as all these various agencies started to assemble, and how you accounted for them all?
Yeah, I think the challenge was there really wasn't the traditional accountability with people bringing passports to a command post or their supervisor. I think what made it successful is that those supervisors in those areas were working with their agencies, so they knew who was coming, so they knew the companies that were doing the work for them. There were some issues, I think, with some self-dispatching from other agencies, but we needed the help. They would eventually got there, but they would have gotten there through dispatch. When I went on foot to the South Division, a chief from Lacey Fire, he had his MCI book out using his checklist to make sure he was covering his points. That was good to see. Seeing the status boards, and they were tracking companies and what work they were doing, setting the priorities of extrication, moving them to a treatment area and transport. So they were tracking the assignments. Probably didn't have the tight enough, or as tight as we'd like to have had, of who was actually doing the work. So if we had to call a company that might have had a mayday even on an accident, they got trapped themselves or were involved in a secondary rollover, it would have taken a little bit of time to find out who they were. Not so much where they were, but who.
Yeah. And in the traditional structure fire sense, crews would be assigned, search, attack, backup, vent. Was there any parsing of assignments to crews? And if so, what kind of assignments were these crews given? And how did you identify, where did it switch from engine 521 to you're going to be a search crew, or how did you identify and control that? Because I would guess that in a pretty short order there were a lot of resources there, and did you have any? Along with that question did you have any concerns or issues of independent action or freelancing of crews that were doing things that maybe weren't coordinated to the plan that you all wanted? Was there any of that kind of challenge?
No, the only freelance challenge I think we had a lot of people coming up to us, being that close to a military base, a lot of Army medics and doctors and nurses. Can I help? Right now we have enough resources. That's a pretty hazard, hot zone. So for your safety, thank you, but stand by. Just listen to how assignments are parched out is, people were in charge of extrication, people were in charge of patient removal, and then others were in charge of taking patients from the accident scene up to the treatment area, which was really close to the transport area. And then we had the triage group that was triaging officers, patients.
That you had said there was, I forget what you called it, some kind of a construction circle or something.
Yeah.
Is that where the treatment area was set up and the transport was?
Yeah, right prior to the overpass, there's a pretty wide gravel area that they've been using for construction. So we had the treatment area, transport area, so we were able to rotate ambulances up and through there. But we also had ambulances at the other end that were coming up the interstate the opposite direction because it was shut down, obviously, and they were able to transport patients to hospitals in Thurston County.
Okay. And were there any other hazards besides the unstable vehicles? Was there any hazmat? Was there any electrical lines down? Any cargo on the semi-tractor trailers that presented any placarding that indicated any things to be concerned with? Any kind of extra complications to this?
We did have power involved, not only with the power to the rail car, the diesel that has the batteries. There was secondary power lines, and trying to find out ownership of those was a little bit difficult because of where it was, almost at a county line, kind of on military property that borders Pierce County, so that was a challenge. We had someone evaluate the hazmat, if there was any, and we got that it was a concern, but it wasn't a critical concern at that point. But it was dealt with eventually with Department of Ecology, dealing with a diesel spill and any other hazards that are associated with an accident, the vehicles, the batteries, the fuel that they have. Did
you have any substantial fuel spill, or was it, what you'd call minor?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't think there was a substantial spill, but, that didn't come across to me. That was more handled at the incident management command post when that was established.
And was there a hazmat response component to this incident as well? Or was it just what, the firefighting crews handled it? Or, I would assume there's a hazmat team somewhere in the region that, otherwise might be dispatched to a hazmat. Were they involved?
Yeah, from my recollection, they notified a response team that was fire-based, but I think it ended up being a responsibility of the Department of Ecology to do the cleanup and containment of that.
Okay. And I know it's only been a couple of days, and it's not like your world stood still, of everything else that you had to do to keep business moving along in DuPont. But have you had enough time to just take a couple breaths in and identify any, for you, lessons learned? Gee, next time I'll be smarter about this, or if I had to wind it all over and do it all again, maybe I wouldn't have done this. Any any kind of takeaway lessons for the listeners and viewers that if they ended up having something like this, that they could benefit from this. These are some really strong takeaways that I've been able to identify.
Yeah, I think for me, being that close to the county line, Thurston County, Pierce County, is we don't train a lot with Lacey Fire. I know them just through association, but I think getting those relationships established with drilling with not everyone in Thurston County, but someone that's going to initially respond to that incident, so we are familiar with one another. We run incidents the same way. We both are using the Blue Card program, so terminology was not a foreign language to us. I think getting a bigger command vehicle there early would help to get 3 players in a vehicle that are on a joint command. I was in the back seat, and it was a back seat.
Yeah.
I think trying to get everyone maybe to go to a common frequency, that like a state frequency that we could all communicate together, would probably benefit. So everyone can hear what's going on. And really, there wasn't a lot of radio communications, a lot of face-to-face, and the divisions were doing face-to-face. And I think those are things I can only think of now.
Yeah.
For business as usual in our town, we were already closed for 2 days for doing citywide training. We were supposed to start city staff that has not completed IMS training. They were supposed to start that day with classroom IMS training. And
So they just did a field trip.
yeah, because the non-injured patients or the victims in the train derailment, we had taken to the fire station, and word got out, and the community there just showed up with food and water, and we had ambulances staged there for a triage, make sure no one was really hiding an injury. Taking care of handling our calls within the city because resources are depleted, so getting backfill, getting an ambulance moved up, that as a paramedic ambulance, so if something happens, that our response times within our own agency weren't delayed. So I'm still thinking, I still got a city of 10,000 people to protect, but this incident's happening now, but I need resources to take care of what can happen.
Yeah. Back to the initial arrival, was there a lot of citizen responders trying to, be helpful in their kind way of aiding victims? Did you see some of that?
Yeah, I saw a lot of people come up to us, active duty military in their fatigues, ready to help, and if it would have been much less of a response from resources, I think we would have utilized those folks. But I cannot believe how fast resources got there. It was like none 1 minute, and it seemed like the next minute the cavalry was there ready to go.
Mm. And as these resources came in, did they stage and wait for a deployment assignment, or how did that?
Yeah,
how did that flow?
We had all the fire engines and trucks and rescues. They staged right close to the incident. We had to get traffic cleared out so we could have a workspace. So they were turning cars around on I-5 and getting them looped back, so we could get access to that construction place where we stored or staged ambulances for people going to Pierce County hospitals. At the other end of the incident, they just came down the highway the opposite direction and stayed down there. And good thing you bring that. I didn't think about how much traffic there was and how many. There had to have been hundreds of cars in our work area, and law enforcement was really good at getting those cars out of there. So we had a place to work. All the law enforcement folks that were there. At one point, some elected officials showed up, so they got eyes on it, and then we directed them to the command post. So they realized the significance of the incident. That is the only way past DuPont is I-5. Otherwise you have to go. It's an extra hour drive. So the frustration of people sitting in traffic, and it's just one of those incidents that they talk about a career call, but then that's my second train derailment since I've been with that fire department. The other one was less significant with I think there was one injury, if I recall. seeing a rail car in the middle of the roadway on its side, they don't look so big.
Yeah.
But when you see them upright on I-5, they're pretty big machines that really have a lot of inherent dangers with them, with the fuel, the batteries, and so.
Uh-huh. And then you said the conductor come up to you pretty early on. Was he injured?
He initially came up to me, and he was pretty calm, talking. He came up to me about 15 minutes later with his arm in a military colored sling, so he obviously had some minor injuries. But, he was relatively calm, talking to us, really, really getting us numbers of people and going back and forth. And probably should have captured him and just put him somewhere close to probably law enforcement, because they probably wanted to talk with him about the incident. So, and just keep him out of a hazard zone, because there could have been further hazards that train falling off.
And I know that without even saying, you activated a mass casualty plan of some sort that you have for the region.
Yeah, and earlier on I think I said that I was thinking about an MCI, and if it's coming from our end, it would take a while to get there, but Thurston County had already activated an MCI 1. And I don't know what their numbers are in Thurston County, but it seemed like an MCI 2 probably would have been what we needed. But it seemed like we got those resources pretty quick. I mean, I didn't think there was that many ambulances that close to that county line, but they were there.
Do you have any estimation about how many ambulances were involved in this process to transport roughly 100 patients?
I don't know. All I know is my unit, because we had some stable patients in our rig, we transported twice, but 8 each time. So we transported 16 patients.
Eight at a time.
Yeah, we had people that were stable, but we also had some people that were backboarded.
Yeah,
and that was typical. You hear another medic 22 transporting 2 red, 7 green, and they would go to the hospital that was receiving.
Yeah,
and you also have to think about that is what hospitals are open, how many can they take, how many of which color in an MCI incident can they take.
So the traditional sense of completing patient care reports in an MCI just kind of goes out the window. Essentially, you just have maybe a name and a chief complaint and a prioritized red, yellow, or green kind of scenario okay. And any estimation of total, just roundhouse, total number of emergency responders, which we'll say police, fire, EMS, how many people were involved in this?
I think now you're talking about police and the private ambulance companies as well as fire. I would have to say 150 plus. I think there had to have been close to 80 to 90 firefighters just by glancing.
Yeah, and any estimation in your I know time gets kind of distorted when you're working an incident like this. How long did it take to assemble 80 or 90 firefighters on the scene? Was that a hour process, or was that a 30-minute process?
Well, like I said, the call we got at my department was at 7:37. I got there pretty close to 8 because the traffic was standstill, and then I recall looking at the watch when about the last patient was leaving was 9:15. So it probably happened within 45 minutes.
Huh. And so as you're going, the first unit, the very first unit on the scene was what? Who?
And I know, talking with the police department in DuPont, that 2 of our police officers got there first before any other units. So they were quickly overwhelmed, because that's not what they're trained to do. They try to do their best. But the Joint Base Lewis McCord had 2 units, and then their chief officer.
And you're on a different radio frequency than them.
Yeah.
So correct. You didn't hear their size up.
No.
So you really didn't know really what we were going to, other than you knew it was something because of how the traffic situation.
Calls
until you literally got there and put your eyeballs on it.
Yeah. And one thing I'd say about that is not knowing what his size up was and what resources he requested. Didn't even know if he was there yet. So as I'm coming around, I'm like, do I duplicate the alarm? And then now we are going deeper to get units and getting too many units.
Yeah, right. You don't know.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Anything we missed that you would hope that we would have talked about that maybe we just didn't cover?
The only thing I can really stress that really helped this be a success is 3 chief officers getting inside one unit, not worrying about jurisdiction, but the incident, and taking care of crews and resources to mitigate the challenge that we were presented with that day. Yeah,
that was a solid early decision to create that joint command, that especially with the different radio frequencies, how important it was to get somebody who could coordinate the resources coming from the jurisdiction that only had that radio channel. Yeah. All right. Well, if you can't think of anything else, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me this morning and to share this perspective. It was really a unique opportunity for me to be here, the day after it happened, and then for you to agree to sit down and to chat and share that first due perspective is going to be, I think, a really powerful message for the listeners.
Yeah, and I'd like to end my talk with just Chief Bernard and Chief Fox from the 2 other agencies. I mean, they were stellar. They cannot enough be said about the job they did in that pickup truck for that first hour.
Yeah, I can imagine just the stress level of managing an incident of that complexity, which most of us can't even fathom.
Yeah. They describe it like a duck. They looked calm, but I know their feet were just working hard. Yeah.
And the same for you, probably. You probably look calm on the outside, but we're going pedaling 1,000 miles an hour on the inside. All right, Larry, thank you.
Right, thanks.
Thank you to DuPont Fire Chief Larry Creekmore for sharing your firsthand experience of the Amtrak train derailment. I have a favor to ask of you, the listener. I launched this podcast to give voice to those who've experienced near-miss events. But we need to get more of those lessons shared to a larger audience. So if you've experienced or witnessed a near-miss event and would like to have a platform to share your lessons learned, contact me by visiting the SAMatters.com website and clicking on the Contact Us tab. If you think about it for a moment, the lessons learned from your near-miss event could save someone else's life. That's really powerful. If you want to share your lessons, contact me. By the time this episode airs, I will have completed programs in Elyria, Solon, Twinsburg, Wintersville, and Canfield, Ohio, and where I am now in Buckley, Washington. In January and February, the Situational Awareness Matters Tour will be making the following stops. January 2 to 6, Fort McMurray, Alberta. January 10 and 11, Henrico County, Virginia. January 20, BX Swan Lake, Alberta. January 21, Penticton, Alberta. January 27, St. Louis, Michigan. January 28, Portage, Michigan. January 29 to February 2, Evansville, Indiana. February 3rd, Swissville, Pennsylvania. February 6th, Evansville, Colorado. February 7th, Frisco, Colorado. February 12 to 15, Missouri City, Texas. February 20, Orlando, Florida. February 21 and 22, Pipestem, West Virginia. And February 27, Austin, Texas. If you want to see all the locations of the upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events, head over to the SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. Just know the schedule is always changing, so check back often. If you're interested in hosting a Situational Awareness Matters tour stop event, then you can contact me now because I'm booking programs for summer and fall of 2018. If you think your company, agency, association, regional conference, state conference, or national conference might want to host a program, just go to SAMatters.com and click on the Contact Us tab. I have great staff who will make the entire process super easy for you. The last time I was delivering programs in southwest Minnesota, I stopped by to visit the sponsor of this podcast, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire is a fire truck manufacturer that makes amazing all-poly-bodied fire apparatus, and it's changing the industry. If you've not checked them out, you need to. Just go to MidwestFire.com. That's MidwestFire.com. Anyhow, while I was there, I got a chance to sit down and talk to some of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Here, I got the chance to talk to account executive Dalton Lingbeck about why Midwest Fire doesn't have a dealer network. Let's listen in. Okay, Dalton, I got a question for you. No dealer network. What's up with that? Are you guys just not big enough to have a dealer network, or what's the strategy here for not having a dealer network for a fire truck manufacturer? That's a little bit out of the norm.
Yeah, no, it's not that we're not big enough. It's really because we actually had people that have come to us and want to be dealers for us, and it's more of a strategy for us to be more direct with the customer. We really want to have direct communication with them, and with the benefit for them as well is that they have direct communication with manufacturing. So really the beautiful thing is that when customers call us and talk to us about trucks, they're talking to an account representative at the facility. So if they have questions that we can't answer, we're 10 steps away from engineering, we're 20 steps away from production. So getting the answers to their questions is really efficient and really easy. It really keeps costs down as well. When you deal with the big guys and they have big dealer networks, they have commission structures for their dealers. You're dealing with a middleman where we don't have those costs. So we look after our customers, make sure that their trucks are affordable, and we make them even more affordable with not having those dealer networks. And then finally, miscommunication is minimal, basically because, like I said, you're dealing with us at the manufacturer facility. We make contact really efficient, and it's just direct, so that's really nice.
Yeah. So if I go to a conference and I see a manufacturer, they have some trucks there, and their booth is just swarming with people, and I'm not guessing, I know those are all their dealer reps. And then I walk over to Midwest Fire, and I see your apparatus on display, and I see some of your people there. Those aren't dealer reps. Those are people from right here in Laverne, Minnesota, that have gone to the conference. And you're talking to the direct people that are going to watch that truck being built beyond the walls that we're sitting in.
Exactly, yeah. So we don't bring anybody else except people that work and are employed by Midwest Fire. You'll see in our booth, you'll see a variety. You'll see the account representatives, so your sales guys, and then you'll see some years we bring engineering, some years we bring people from the shop, on the shop floor, from production. Our CEO, Sarah Atchison, is there every single year. You can talk to her. We bring people from the office. It's just everyone you talk to is directly here at the facility in Laverne, and it's nice.
Yeah. So if you're wondering what differentiates Midwest Fire from their competitors, there you have it, right from the horse's mouth. So check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thank you to Midwest Fire President Sarah Atchison and all your staff for your awesome commitment to improving the safety of first responders. I really appreciate your support of my mission. Hey, if you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners yet, there are more than 50,000 connected here through the newsletter, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, sharing ideas on how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train employees to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. If you want to sign up for my monthly newsletter, it's really easy to do. All you have to do is get out your smartphone and text SA Matters to 22828. That's the letter S and the letter A. S as in Sam, A as in Adam, Matters. SA Matters all together as one word. SA Matters to 22828. And you'll get a message back about getting access to my program handouts too. So if you want to see what the content of the programs are, just consider that some bonus material for signing up. If you want to get connected on Twitter, follow @Rich Gasaway on Twitter. If you want to get connected on LinkedIn, you can search for Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. If you want to watch my videos, you can go to the SA Matters TV YouTube channel. That's SA Matters TV, all one word, on YouTube. You can also get connected with me on Facebook by liking the SA Matters page. Finally, if you would like to advertise your product or service on this podcast or through my social media connections, contact me. The podcast has enjoyed over 250,000 downloads. And I show some love to my sponsors on my social media connections as well. So if you want to get your message in front of my listeners, just go to samatters.com and send me an email. Well, that's it. Episode 192 is complete. Thank you to my guest, DuPont Fire Chief Larry Creekmore, for sharing your firsthand perspective of the tragic Amtrak train derailment in Washington on December 18th. Thank you to our awesome podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all of the companies, agencies, and organizations that have hosted live events. Thank you to all who've attended the virtual training events that we're now doing. Thank you to the more than 1,000 students enrolled in the SA Matters Online Academy. And most importantly, thank you, the listener of this podcast, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.